We just got done discussing passive transport. Let's talk active transport. Starting off, remember that active transport is the thing that you have to have energy, some type of energy, to make the thing go. Primary transport comes from the use of ATP. ATP is the currency. It is the money exchange. It is the currency of the cell. It is the dinero that makes things roll, that make the world spin, your cell's world spin. ATP develops that energy. It pushes that energy into that cell in order for something that is contrary to a concentration gradient, contrary to an electrical gradient, and make it work against it. One really, really good example is this, the sodium-potassium pump. What happens is sodium is on the outside and really, really wants in, and potassium's on the inside and really, really wants out. The thing is, if you let that happen, your cell's going to die. You need to maintain that concentration gradient. A lot of processes really, really need that concentration to work. For instance, your brain needs it to be this way. Your muscles need it to be that way. A majority of your cells really need it to be set up like this. So in order to fix it, to reset that concentration gradient, it uses that primary active transport. It'll take 3 sodium ions from the inside, put it into that little slot, and then ATP will come along, give it the energy, give it the dollar bills, to make it go out and expel it against its concentration gradient, while also dragging in that potassium against its concentration gradient. Now, that is the primary active transport. Secondary active transport, this should say not passive, but is an active form of transport, uses a different type of gradient. It uses a different type of power rather than using ATP. It's actually talking about using, this is why it's so important to maintain this sodium-potassium concentration gradient. Because calcium, in order to get calcium out of the cell against its will, antiport. Anti means going against. If you want, for instance, your stomach, if you want your stomach to push out hydrochloric acid, you're going to need to move some sodium and push out some hydrogen. These are both antiports, and they use the concentration gradient of another ion to make it happen. The symports also do the same, but they're going in the same direction. The sim means same. And hopefully, if you want to break down antiporters and symporters a little bit more, ports, if you remember, good old New Orleans we have ourselves a port as well, where certain things come in, dock, and let go, release their stuff or exchange their stuff and supplies here in New Orleans. So these are sort of like that. It's a boat port almost, but first on the micro scale. And it requires a lot of energy to make it work. So an antiport is you're moving stuff off the boat that's in high concentration to get stuff onto it. A symport is we're pushing everything off the boat, unloading it into the New Orleans port. Okay. There is one other form of active transport, and it is called the vesicles. I did mention about it. That is the mass macromolecule movement if you want it to work. How it happens. There are several ways that this can occur. This can go endocytosis, exocytosis, and transcytosis. Let's start off with endocytosis. Your white blood cells, the large macrophages. Macrophagia means it eats big. Sure do love to consume things that should not be in your blood or your tissues. So it'll find something, it'll grab onto it, and consume it. It'll phagocytize. Phago means eat. Cytosis means via the outside or via the cytoplasm. Pulls in this thing, and then it'll put in a lysosome, combine it with it, which has some very acidic, destructive enzymes as well, that'll help break it down, and then it'll determine, we'll talk about what it does with it in AMP3, but it does something with it, whether it expels it, uses it, or helps instigate the process of the immune system. You don't need to know what the phagocyte will do with this residual body. You also got endocytosis, where in the sense of pulling in nutrients, macronutrients that you need. So this could be occurring in the small intestine. It could be occurring in other different locations. But it pulls it in. Pinocytosis means to drink. So it's taking a sip, swallowing it, hits the stomach, digests it, and then the digested molecules, excuse me, shoots out and provides the nutrients that we need. We also have exocytosis and transcytosis. Exocytosis is where you're pushing stuff out. So exocytosis would be, for instance, happening in reverse of the endocytosis. You're spewing stuff out. So your hormone glands, when it's releasing insulin, glucagon, growth hormone, all that stuff, it's going to do endocytosis to do that, exocytosis to do that. It just excretes it out into the blood and off it goes. Exo means outside. If you are a animal lover or a bug lover, you know we have an endoskeleton, means on the inside, but an exoskeleton means on the outside. So exoskeleton, exocytosis means going out. Endocytosis means in. So it's going to be going in. And then finally, transcytosis means it's a combo of both exo and endocytosis. You take something up, it goes to the other side of the cell and spits it out. The other side. And that for you is everything about the cell membrane. That was active transport. We will be talking about the structure of the cell here shortly, as well as the varying organelles.